Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. That's a quote from Helen Keller. That is a great quote for what we're going to talk about today. A part of what we're going to talk about today. Today's episode, which is called Next Right Thing. Is it the next right thing or next right thing?
I think it's next right thing.
I always don't know if there's a the or... Okay, I think it's just next right thing.
I don't know. It could be the next right thing.
This episode is called that because what we're doing right now is every episode is about a track from our new album that released today. The Story of Us. Mm-hmm. It's our debut album together, and we'll talk more about that. But that is out today. So, yay.
That's so exciting.
So, this is track 2 from that. Next Right Thing. And it's a song from Frozen 2. And there's a lot of meaning to that song. When we first heard it, we were just like, oh.
Pretty sure I cried in the theater.
I'm pretty sure too. It deals with grief, and it also has a lot of meaning to us in the world of recovery.
Lots.
And so we're going to dig into that. Get into that nitty gritty. I like to call it. I'm going to start calling those sections the nitty gritty.
Oh,
the nitty gritty.
I really like that. Like the parts where we dive into.
Yeah, that's the nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty.
Nitty gritty.
Hashtag nitty gritty.
So we're going to dive into that, and that's what's coming up here on Finding Us the Podcast with Chad and Fallon.
Chad and Fallon.
All right, so we always like to start off with, not always, but a lot of times we like to start off with kind of giving an update on what we've been up to this week since our last episode with the band, the duo, Finding Us, what we've been up to just individually, what's been going on, just kind of fill people in our lives a little bit. So go ahead, you start. What's been going on with you this week?
Me,
with
personally?
You. Yes.
Well, I've been continuing to study for my exams, which, I'm so tired. I'm finding myself, because we're still in quarantine, so I'm finding myself still wanting to, like, I think I'm doing a good job at balancing, but I'm finding myself like, oh, I want to garden and I want to clean the house. And anyways, so I've been studying. And I have a stack of note cards that's like this big. And that's not even, I don't
envy you in the slightest.
It's a lot.
Not in the slightest.
But of course, I enjoy learning about this stuff. So it's fun too. Also, personally, something that we started this week together, we started it's not really together. We're kind of like doing it individually, but like in the same room. We are doing the on-site 30-day living centered program or challenge. And so that's been really amazing.
So on-site, I've mentioned them in the past. They're a recovery center or therapeutic center, I guess you call it.
It's a place you go for intensives, like
like intensives and go couples intensives, individual stuff. You can do group things. Yeah. Anyways, I went a few months back, and longer than that now. However, 6 months ago, I don't know. It was in the fall, so I went in the fall, and it was life-changing. I've been through a lot of stages in recovery, and doing that was the best investment I've ever made. So anyways, I'm actually representing their hat right now.
Yes, you are.
Hey, Onsite, you should sponsor this podcast.
That would be amazing.
Or bring some of your people on for be a part.
What if we did guest specials?
We'll have guests eventually.
I love it.
That's going to happen for sure.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So anywho, so we started that 30-day on-site thing where it's just about, like you said, getting centered.
Yeah, there's like a reflection portion, there's a video portion, and then there's like a practical, like you put into practice whatever the word is of the day. And yeah, it's been really good.
It's really awesome. I think it's only available for alumni, so it's not like a public thing, I don't think. But gotcha. So we started that, and that's been really cool. A lot of good reflection in that, and a lot of things where it's just good. There are a lot of great reminders, just a lot of stuff that you forget about, like gratitude and reflection and patience. And they give you exercises to work on that. Acceptance.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, one day the exercise was to, every time you feel that tug that you can't control, that you feel like you don't have control, and you feel that tension, to say the prayer,
the serenity prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So we said that quite a bit. We were pulling in a Costco parking lot together, and Fallon's over there like, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yeah,
like, keep repeating it.
A madhouse. Anyway.
So finding us. For me personally, it's been a lot of work on finding us stuff, the duo stuff.
You've been very busy.
Been very, very busy. Still a new brand, new band. I've been preparing for our album to release, making sure everything is ready to go there. And my days have been full of that. A lot of that. I haven't been recording with Anthem Lights, but that's about to change. We're about to be in this. We just arranged actually today together, and we're about to record again soon for a new album coming up. So finding us stuff has been very busy, but the biggest thing with finding us update is that our album is out today. Finally. It's been so long.
Nervous and excited. It's like holding both. It's equal. Like I'm so excited that it's out there, and that really that's a piece of us. And so that's
a very big piece of us.
Very scary.
We spent a lot of time on it. It's our first thing together, our first full album together, which is amazing.
The excitement part.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, that's what's been fun about this whole thing. It's been a lot of work, but even if even if we don't sell a single album, it was very fun. It's just fun. It was just fun to do it.
It was fun to kind of curate and like take just our feelings and our little pieces of our story and like put it in piece of art.
For sure.
That's really cool.
So that's a big thing. If you have not yet, please go stream, purchase. We got CDs available
on our Facebook
iTunes,
page,
you got Spotify. It's available everywhere. Please listen to that. We'll have videos coming out weekly. New videos will come out weekly on Finding Us's Facebook page. And so that starts today. Our first video today.
How interesting.
The song we are talking about today. Next Right Thing is out. So check that out on all the places. I'm excited. So we're stoked.
It's cool that we're talking about it today too. I don't know how that worked out, but I love it. Did you plan it?
You don't think that was planned? Okay. You think things just happen?
That shows who's on the side of like working and stuff.
You're the talent. I'm just kidding.
We're both the talent.
I know. I'm just kidding.
You're cute.
Please, comment on all our things on socials. Send us messages.
Please.
My wife has been adamant about making sure she responds to everybody.
That should be a big part of my, what I've been up to.
Yeah.
Every day, it's me, usually, who's the one commenting. And of course, Chad helps. But any messages, we are reading this stuff. We don't have a team doing it for us. We are reading, we are responding. So I can add that into my what I've been up to is I take an hour out of my day, and I am sold. I am in on connection with everybody that's commenting. And I am so thankful for the people that are sending us messages. Y'all, to those of you who have sent us messages, email, or even private messages on Facebook, thank you. Thank you, because that takes courage and that takes risk, and you are seen, you are heard, and I are doing the best we can. And I'm so grateful, and I just want to put the gratitude out there for that, because that is challenging me. And I appreciate the opportunity for your vulnerability and risk to put yourself out there, put the questions out there.
Yeah, we've had a lot of really good stuff.
Really good stuff.
Wow. It's amazing. We love, obviously we're preaching vulnerability, we're preaching realness, and we got a lot of that.
Yeah.
And just hear us say that just makes you stronger. There is a lot of people don't share things like that or are vulnerable about that stuff because they feel like it makes them weaker.
Right.
And it is the absolute opposite. Vulnerability is strength. And we love it, and keep them coming.
Well, and thank you for, I'm getting like teary, like thank you for trusting us even with this stuff that some of y'all are sharing. I mean, it's really, it's life and it's real stuff, and I'm so grateful.
Speaking of questions.
Yeah.
We got a couple questions from you guys through our email that we want to. One is we're going to read, and one is was sent in by audio.
Yeah.
And so we're excited about that. We want to give a little disclaimer before we get into this.
Yes.
We just want to make sure we put out there we are not professionals. We are not professional counselors.
Correct.
My wife is on her way.
I'm a student.
She's
y'all.
a student.
I'm a
not
student.
officially there. So please, we had some questions that were really tough questions that we are going to answer as best as we can from our experience in our own work.
Yeah.
And, we have a lot of experience in a lot of work over several years. And my wife has, of course, been in studies to be a counselor for years, and 4.0 GPA, I can't say it, 4.0 GPA over there. And
that was such a brag. I'm like getting hot.
Yeah. Take it. Accept
you.
the brag. Okay. Accept the brag.
Okay,
4.0 over
it.
there.
Thank
you. So she's killing it.
Not
but
easy.
All that to say, we just wanted to give a disclaimer. We are not counselors. We're going to answer the questions to the best of our ability. And, but, there's a lot of stuff that we would just recommend that you would, of course, go to professionals about.
Yes. In your area, find someone. Yes.
Exactly. So on that note, go ahead and read the first question.
So the first question is from Maggie in New York. I'm so sorry. I wasn't even going to try to pronounce your city. I think it was like, see, I'm not even going to try. I would just make a fool of myself. You're in New York. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? You go first.
My dream is to keep doing what we're doing when it could, professionally speaking, in 10 years. I want to keep doing this. I want this podcast to be going strong, in a dream world. And honestly, like, I've enjoyed this podcast so much that typically I've looked at potentially doing podcasts as something that supports and feeds into the music. But I've enjoyed it so much that my mindset has been shifting to, I want the music to feed and support the podcast. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I professionally speaking, I want to keep doing music in some capacity, and I would love to keep doing music, and doing this kind of thing with my wife. I would love for us to have a book out. I would love for us to have different programs out. I would love for us to be able to travel and do this kind of thing, around the country or the world.
Amazing.
Of course, I would love to travel the world, which I know you're going to give an answer to.
Maybe.
I would love to have a kid or two by that point. We are kidless at the moment, but hopefully in 10 years we will have 2 little ones. It's my dream. A boy and a girl.
That's quite selective.
This is recorded, so our kids are one day be like, "You wanted a boy and a girl, you got 2 boys." I don't know. Anyways, I want to be in a healthy place when it comes to my sobriety. I want to be looking back at the stuff and the really hard stuff that we've been through over the past few years, and it start to feel like a distant memory. But I never want to forget it. Right. But I want that to be the fire, I want that to be the mess that we look back on as people who have been through it. And in 10 years from now, we are more significantly stronger, as individuals and as a couple because of it. Right now, that's hard to imagine looking back and being like, it's something that was a blip on our radar.
It's very hard to imagine.
But that's what I hope. And I hope that, that's what I hope. And so that's where I see 10 years, and that's the dream.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well said. Thank you for sharing. So kind of similar answers. We didn't talk about this, beforehand. So I see myself hopefully in a private practice, possibly with a doctorate. I would love to have a book with you. And what would be really cool is, so my dream would be to be traveling and doing shows and having like a mixture of some singing. And I'm sure that I'm actually not sure. I don't know. But that could be the draw of people bringing us to wherever they are, while also talking about this stuff. But here's the thing. My idea of like talking about this stuff is not like us on a platform and like everybody else. I want to be like in it. I don't want there to be division. Like, we have a lot to offer. We have a lot to bring. And so I understand like the logistics of that. There will have to be some of that. But really, like, I want it to be a group and a joint experience, whatever that looks like for the future. And really be in the nitty gritty, like with everyone else and like just hanging out, That's kind of my dream. I would love to, so like, personally, so a more fun note, I would love to have traveled several more places around the world, and just sightsee. We have one life. It's very short. I would like to live it. Maybe be in a new home, still in the current area that we're in Franklin, but maybe somewhere. I really want to have goats, like baby goats and like chickens.
And chickens, yeah.
And so I know that's a lot of work, but that would just be really cool. And maybe...
Basically, you want to be Joanna Gaines.
I really do. I really do. Like, I just want a whole rose garden, some chickens, some livestock. I mean, I want the whole thing. And maybe a child or two.
Maybe a child.
I feel like we need to like see how the first one goes and then see if we're like cut out for the two parent.
If you can't tell, I'm more pro kids than she is at the moment.
Don't even get me started. I love children. I'm terrified of children.
We love children you love children when we can give them back.
Yes, kids have actually always scared me. And then the childbirth thing, oh my God, like my whole body has to like go through that. That's terrifying in itself. And then the whole raising part,
I would do it for you
gosh.
if I could.
Oh, that's sweet. I wish I could just pass it on to you. Anyway, so yeah, that's where I see us.
Cool. So what's the next question for us?
So we actually, someone sent in an audio clip, so I'm going to play it, and it's from Ivory, and she tells you where she's from.
Hi guys, my name is Ivory, and I'm from Southern Alberta, and I was just wondering, if a marriage is struggling, is there always a solution, or is divorce the healthiest solution in some cases?
Oh, we said we wanted the tough questions. That is the tough question.
Ivory, you got us.
This is also the kind of question where...
That's the tough question.
Where answering honestly might make some listeners upset a little bit.
And disclaimer, this is just our opinion.
Yeah,
this doesn't mean that we're right.
Always. Everything we say on the show
I just wanted, because we talked about it in previous episodes. Yeah. This is just our opinion. We don't know if we're right or wrong, and we're totally open to being wrong. And so we're just going to attempt and see what happens.
And that's the kind of culture we want to build on the show too, is nothing we say is, well, we know this to be the absolute fact and the solution. We have opinions. You have opinions, and the beauty and the hope is that we can all have our opinions. Yeah. And be able to learn to listen to people with different opinions instead of listening to respond. So
Ivory, your question.
You want to start? I'll start. You start.
You started the last one. Can I start this one?
Go for it.
Okay. So this question is a great question. Firstly, very tough question. I think that the answer to this question, it completely depends on the situation and the couple. I mean, we could go all day and list examples, but something that comes to my mind is like, what if a woman is married to a man who's abusing her? Should she stay in that relationship or get out? And really, I think everybody has to answer this question for themselves, because we're so faceted as human beings. And all that to say, whatever is happening situationally, I highly encourage the couple to seek professional counseling before a decision such as divorce is made. I don't know if there's a solution to every problem. And then I would go on to say that if therapy doesn't work, if professional help is sought, and you've committed to a certain time, like I've heard some people commit to 6 months, some people commit to a year, before, making a decision and arriving at a decision. But regardless, if therapy does not work and one of you decides that divorce is the best option, I just want to encourage you to seek out, again, professional help for the divorce and for mediation, especially if children are involved. Walking the path of divorce can be very, very complicated, and it can be very messy. And I know that professional therapists are equipped to help the divorce and the process of divorce be done a lot smoother and in a healthier way. And so there's less emotional harm on the individuals that are in the relationship and on the children. So sometimes we need help to facilitate such drastic life changes. And I think it's wonderful, and it's completely okay to ask for help. So, yay, that's my answer.
Great
What
answer.
about for you?
Yeah, this question's a scary one for me to answer because of the fact that I grew up in Christian culture,
Right.
and
I did too.
where divorce wasn't optional.
Right.
And so that's why we kind of started this, like, we have our opinion, please don't be upset at us,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. However, there are obviously the obvious scenarios where divorce should happen when somebody is abusing the other and won't stop and has no intentions of stopping. I mean, for someone to tell me that you have no right to divorce that person, I can't be on board with that. However, in other scenarios, I know for us, and again, there's a million different scenarios that you could be in, and it all is different.
Right.
I certainly would say that that it is vitally important, no matter what you're going through, that both of you are working toward healing in some way, and whatever it is in this situation. Where it can get tricky and where divorce should become an option is if one spouse, for instance, is doing something that goes completely against your boundaries, won't change, doesn't care to change. And there's just been time and time of this. And you know that you have done everything you can do, both professionally speaking, that you've gone and gotten professional advice and professional help. That's incredibly important. I would highly recommend that decision never gets made without support from the right people and professional advice.
Yeah.
Doing that off of just what's in your own head. I mean, you only have we talk a lot about realities, but you only have your reality, and your reality, you just need other perspectives from the right people, not just close friends who are all for you, because that can get dicey too. Go to people who have no relation to you and your husband, which typically I would say go to professional advice. Don't go to the church. Don't go to the pastor. It's just those things, things get dicey then at that time. So I would suggest that strongly. I know in our experience, when things for us, which we've talked about in previous episodes, but when things in our marriage exploded, when my wife made discoveries of my addictions and things that she had absolutely no idea was going on, the hurt and grief that she felt and anger that she felt in the moment, she would have probably been out and divorced me. No questions asked. That's that. You messed up. However, we fortunately were able to get professional advice, professional help. And one of the biggest things you'll hear in a situation like that, where something happens, something is discovered about either spouse that's just earth-shattering, that you wait at least 6 months was the advice we got. That no matter how much you want to walk out of this marriage and end this marriage today, just commit to waiting 6 months before you make a decision. Because that obviously gives time for you to come off of that anger and that high that you're on from the discovery and how hard it is. And that gives you time to think more clearly and also to see what the other spouse does about it. I, of course, went super aggressive into healing and recovery. It took me years to get anywhere where I wanted to be with it, because there's a lot there that until the discovery happened, I had no idea it was even a thing. And I was so unaware of it and thought, no, I don't have a problem. And it took me a long time to get through my false ego to figure out that, oh, wait, I do. And so, all the stages of that. So I would definitely highly recommend that you give it time. If again, this scenario is something happened and there's a lot going on. All that to say, I do believe divorce absolutely is an option, that there is not a solution to every marital issue. There isn't. There's some, and if you get the right professional help, they will tell you and they will guide you in the fact of there is no solution here after every avenue has been attempted to reconcile and to make it work. But again, it takes two people. I do believe fully. I do believe that if there are two people who are willing to change, not change I want our marriage to be better, so we're going to work on our marriage, which is very important, but change in a personal way, change in I'm going to do work on me. You are going to do work on you. I have a hard time imagining a scenario where you don't end up reconciling and you don't want divorce and marriage suddenly becomes something you never thought it could be in a good way.
Right.
However, during that process, it will get very hard, maybe harder for a while, because to look at yourself in that way, to look at your marriage in that way, to actually step back and be like, our way is not working. I need a new way. And to actually come to that place is very hard. And a lot of people don't make it through that. But if you do, I have a hard time seeing a scenario where that doesn't end up working and divorce doesn't have to be on the table.
I've seen it.
You have seen it? Okay.
Yeah. I think that is a possibility. I think that from what I've witnessed, that two people have sought professional help and they've moved through it and done the years of work. And at the end of it, and they're both healthy selves, they agree that the marriage is just not working, that they're just completely different people, that to go separate ways is better. And those people are still they wouldn't take back that decision. So that I have seen it that way too.
Yeah.
So
but
again,
at least they went through the work, right?
They went through the work.
They didn't just give up. So I think that's the most important thing, is to go through the work and see what comes out the other side.
And I want to say too, like there's a lot of people, like we're powerless over another human being. And so if the other person isn't willing, we can't make that person, or whoever it is can't make the other person heal or be willing to heal and be willing to do the right things or whatever's right for them. And that's very tough. Mm-hmm. That's a tough situation. And so all that to say, I think that every person is different. Every situation is unique. And like I have been encouraged from several people in my recovery to seek after my higher powers, who I call God, his will for me, and to let go of the outcome, even if that means divorce. And that I believe that I will be prompted to do whatever the right thing is at the right time. And I just have to trust that my higher power will provide that for me. So,
And I just want to say one more thing as well. If the scenario is somebody has to go through recovery on, one of the spouses, like something came up that was discovered.
Yeah.
I can't express enough how vitally important it is that even if you are the spouse who was hurt, you are the spouse who was the victim and had, things done to you behind your back. It is so vitally important that you are working in recovery yourself alongside the spouse that is in recovery.
Which is very hard to do.
Very hard to do. But it will not work if the one person sits back like, you need to get things together.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Which is so easy. I was that person. Like, it's so easy to feel like I don't understand. Like, my spouse is the one with the problem. I don't have a problem. And what I've learned is, no, I'm a co-addict. And there are things, as hard as that is to admit, like before whatever happened in our marriage, like I found a place in the rooms that I'm in because of, like we've said in previous episodes, family of origin stuff, experiences, trauma, situations. Like, anyways, yes, I was just...
Yeah.
And supporting your point, because that's really hard. And because I remember the first time I heard that and I was defensive, like, heck no. And everyone is on their own journey. And it took me years. It took me years to get to the place that I am now. And yeah, that is not an easy thing, especially in the beginning.
Cool.
So yeah.
Thank you so much for the question. Thank you for the tough question.
It was very tough.
I don't know if it can get tougher than that.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
I wonder how many people we upset just now.
We can't worry about it.
I know.
To each their own.
I know. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into the nitty gritty.
The nitty gritty.
About the song.
We need like a...
Next Right Thing. We're going to dig into that. So be right back. And we're back. Finding Us the podcast.
Hello.
For those still hanging around after all that, thank you for being still.
Thank you for
still
sticking with us.
All right, so we're gonna dig into the song "Next Right Thing."
Take a step again. It is all that I can to do. The next right thing.
It's track 2 on our new album, which just released today, and debut album, The Story of Us. Next Right Thing is from Frozen 2, the movie. So I always like to, when we're doing this, I like to talk about it musically speaking first before we get into the meaning of it for us and all that stuff. Musically speaking, this was the most challenging song on the album by far, by a lot. One of those where the producer's like, why do you do Broadway stuff? Because if you know anything if you know anything musically speaking, Broadway stuff is just so obscure when it comes to the amount of chords and key changes. Like this song had so many key changes. I can't remember how many he said, but there's a lot of them and really strange ones. And that's a nightmare for producers and musicians. And fortunately though, I got really good ones. I brought this to Josiah, who did the guitars on this and helped arrange these songs with me. And I was just like, I don't know how we're going to make this one work, because if you hear the original of this song in the movie, I mean, she's like crying most of the way through them, you know.
Yes.
And it's just, it doesn't make, when you hear it in the movie, I don't know. I remember hearing it like, I love this song. I love the words. It means so much to us. It's so impactful to us and inspiring. We've got to be able to cover this. I don't know how we're going to make this work. So brought it to Josiah, who's fortunately a master at this.
He's a master.
At the musician thing. I'm saying things weird today. And and he figured it out in a way that I certainly could never, because I don't play any instruments.
Josiah, you did an incredible job.
Killed it as usual. And so
good.
We made it happen, I think, and made it work. And then I arranged vocals, which I love. Again, I love arranging vocals for two people to a song that's one person singing and no parts. It's because I can be very creative and come up with my own stuff. And but that was really hard too. I remember struggling with that. Like, how do I keep this interesting and fun, and also with the key changes and all the stuff. So musically speaking, the song was difficult, but this is probably, I think you said this is your favorite song on the album, maybe?
This is my favorite song.
Favorite song.
On maybe one other one is like up there, but I adore this song. I mean, and we'll get into why.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cool. Yeah. So that's really the musical side of things. Track 2, Story of Us album out today. This video out today. Check it out. Thank y'all. Love y'all. Appreciate it. All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty.
Nitty gritty.
I'm going to say it Southern every time.
Hashtag nitty gritty.
Nitty gritty. Nitty gritty.
Let's do it.
I'm going to get more and more Southern with it. Let's get down nitty gritty. Nitty gritty. I don't know what I'm doing.
Please don't. Why did we choose this song?
Oh, nitty gritty. I'm just kidding. Why did we choose this song, Fallon? What did this song mean? What does this song mean to us? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. I'm going to speak for me and guess at us, and if I'm wrong, tell me.
What you're going to answer is going to be the correct answer for both of us. So
okay, great.
You're answering for both of us.
So I think the entire song, like the title, the lyrically, all of it, the entire song reflects what we've gone through as a married couple and our journey. I mean, let's be real. I lost what I thought our marriage was. Completely shattered. Broke me. Very sad. Really hit me hard. And if you're interested in what all of that is about, go back to episode 2. And at the end of the episode, we talk about our story. And so, yeah. So I think that this song, the first time I heard it, it took me back there. And it was like, okay, yeah, like I know this grief. And anyways, I also think that this song reflects recovery for me. So I think it's just, this song embodies.
For us.
Yeah. It embodies like the journey and the crap and the stuff and the grief. And it also embodies recovery and like the recovery journey and how messy it is and how I just need to do the next right thing, whatever that looks like for me, for us. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times. In fact, after we did this song, every time I hear it now, I kind of smile because I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we did this song.
Me too.
But I attend 12-step meetings, and the amount of times I hear someone sharing in a 12-step meeting and they say the words, I'm just had to do the next right thing, or I know that I just have to do the next right thing, or I did the next right thing. Because that sometimes in recovery can be all you can do. And we'll get more into that.
I melted when I heard that. I mean, her sing it. Like, I cried.
Yeah, it's a really great
hit
moment,
me.
great song for us.
Yeah.
For sure. So,
So I think the two core where we're going to go today, I think the two core themes of this song is grief and recovery. So let's do it.
let's do it.
Let's talk about grief.
Start with grief.
Yeah.
So I want to start off this part with, kind of another disclaimer, but not really. I think grief, one very important thing about grief is you have the right to grieve no matter what it is that you're grieving about. It's valid. Just because the thing that you feel shame about grieving about and feeling like I can't grieve about this because you may know somebody who's had loss that was much greater than yours. But then that person has somebody who lost much greater, you know what I mean? Like it
There's
can
no
keep
comparison.
going. There's no comparison, but a lot of people will compare. And a
Right.
big reason why
Right.
people won't allow themselves to grieve is because they don't feel like they don't feel worthy of it. Essentially, like they're allowed to. They feel shame and grieving because of somebody else they know who has gone through worse. So I just want to, I think I want to throw that out and talk about how vital it is to allow yourself to grieve.
Yes.
If you're like me, and a lot of people are, growing up most of my life, and this is, I'm 33 now, and really up until 31, 32, my life was not allowing myself to feel the negative, and I'm putting quotations again, negative feelings.
Right.
I did not let myself feel sadness. I certainly didn't let myself grieve. If there was something that I should be grieving, I would turn to things that would numb it to where I didn't have to feel it.
Yeah.
And there's a list of those things, but all to keep myself from experiencing that pain and that grief.
Right.
But I just want to say and encourage everyone out there, if you have something to grieve. It hurts. It is not fun. It is miserable. And my wife knows it better than I do. But here I go, I'm comparing. I just did it. I was like, my wife knows better than me. But hey, I've experienced my own grief in things.
Absolutely.
And loss in things.
Absolutely.
And it is just vital that you allow yourself to grieve. That means getting away from the things that you typically would to do to keep your mind off of it, that you would do to numb, just sit in it. And obviously depending on what you're going through, depends on what you're going through depends on how deep the grief is going to be. But also I want to get into, and I want you to help me on this part, I want to talk about how the length of grief will completely depend on the person and their own trauma and their own things from their childhood that have been stirred up from whatever it is that they're grieving.
Yeah.
And also, on that note, we have to not judge and shame others when they are grieving something that you can't understand, or that you personally feel like you would have been over by now. Why is that person still grieving over this? Are you kidding me?
Right.
There's a good chance you have never gone through what that person is going through, and so there's no way you would know how you react. B, even if you have been through something similar to what that person's going through, the way you respond to that and the grief, and how quickly you recover from that grief, and how that person is recovering from that grief, completely depends on what they have gone through in their own lives. What is the thing they're grieving has struck a chord in them as a child from their childhood, that will completely cause the difference in length. So I think that's important
It's
to
unique
talk about.
to each person, because as we've mentioned before, every person is significantly different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that any human being is made the same. We're intricately different.
Mm-hmm.
So that means grieving, and the process of grieving is going to look very different for each person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time. Talk about the
stages.
Yeah, the grief stages. Typical grief stages.
I think the biggest thing here is grieving is not linear. It is circular. It's not going to progress in these stages, which is supported by several years of research. But it's not linear. It's not going to go in each order of these 5 stages. It's circular. It's going to be like the third one's going to happen, then the last one's going to happen, then you're going to end up back at stage 1. And you just never know. And also, triggers can trigger the grief. So you can be having a great day, something comes on TV. It could be anything, could trigger the grief, and you're right back in the trauma or the experience of the loss or whatever it is. So the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And let me tell you from experience, you may get into acceptance and then you wake up the next day and you're just right back in anger, or you're right back in denial, or you're right back into bargaining, or you're just depressed. And so all that to say, you can be in acceptance like over and over and over and over, and it's just, again, it's circular. It's not linear. So with that said, I think it's important to say with that, not to put judgment on yourself, because you just can't. And like with the shame thing that you were talking about, I think it's so easy to get in shame and think, why am I not already over this? Or feel like societal expectation to move on, or even social expectation from peers, family, friends, whatever. And so I think it's really important to not put judgment on yourself in these stages of denial. And to add to that,
because if you do, and because a lot of people just decide they're not going to grieve and they're going to be over it, and that does not end well.
No, y'all. If you shove it down, I promise you, it will come back out, and it will not just come back out. It will be exponentially bigger and come out sideways. Like their feelings are inescapable. We are born with feelings. Not that and this is going to go into a whole nother thing. We're not taught how to manage, like how to identify emotions, identify the feelings, and then we don't know how to like regulate them. And people this is like our society. Like we don't know how to express them in an appropriate way. Like these are things that we have to learn as children. I mean, this is very, very vital. And I skip this. Like I do not feel like I was given the tools to know how to navigate my feelings and like be able to identify all of like the core feelings and how to express them and how to manage them in an appropriate and adaptive, not maladaptive way. So yes, that's wonderful.
We could do a whole episode on feelings, and we will, I'm sure.
I'm sure we will. But yes, let yourself feel, because if you don't let yourself feel, then you can't heal. If you think you're healing, there's no foundation. It will crumble. So might as well do it right the first time, right?
And when you say the words, it will come out sideways.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people may not know what that means, but what that means oftentimes is it comes out in ways where a lot of times it's vomiting on the people you love the most, or other people
or your
around
animals.
You. It will turn into like
or
you.
Public.
It'll be our dog Benny.
Public.
It comes out in the need to control.
Yeah.
It comes out in anger towards people. It comes out in meanness towards people. It comes out in half jokes.
Yes.
Story of my life comes out in half jokes.
Yeah.
And passive aggressiveness.
Yes.
Story of my life. Passive aggressiveness. it can come out in so many ways, but that's what we mean by.
I would love to
comes out
share. I
sideways.
mean, this is perfect. Like, this is something that I was faced with last week. Y'all, if you are in public and if someone is, I mean, directly just rude and saying rude things or being just cruel or whatever, I mean, if that is happening, I have had to learn, instead of like reacting, taking a pause, breath, back seat, and putting it on them, realizing this has nothing to do with me. There's something tough going on in that person's life, and being able to accept that person's state as where they are. That's really tough, but it goes exactly along with your point. Like, it will come out sideways.
Yeah.
And
The thing I always like, if somebody is purposefully hurting somebody verbally in whatever way, where they're just being just mean,
right.
I always just want to look at that person and say something along the lines of, there must be a lot of hurt going on inside you to feel the need to make me feel what you
Yeah.
just attempted to do.
Like, round of applause.
Yeah.
That was great.
I always want to say that to people, but then
Yeah.
I'm just like, it kind of feels like I'm just doing my own version of an insult.
That's
but,
true. Yeah.
But that's what I feel. It's
But
just,
if you
yeah.
internalize that and think that, I think that puts us in a posture of curiosity and like, oh, this person's got a lot of crap going on, and I just need to be Christ-like, speaking to myself, and, you know, be accepting and not fire back and be a huffy puffy.
Oh, it's hard.
So all that to say, I want to circle back. So grief. Grief reactions are disruptive. If you haven't experienced grief, this is informative. And if you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Grief reactions are disruptive, very disorienting on every level of your being. So grief can manifest itself in different ways. And I think that this is not talked about enough. And so I'm going to do it. There are several ways that grief can manifest itself. And the first way people, this is what comes out in people usually first, is physical or somatic responses. And what that looks like, some examples are nausea, tiredness, loss of appetite, insomnia, muscular aches. And so it's very common that people experience these physical responses to feelings, to grief, and they go to the doctor with physical complaints. They're seeking help. They just want a pill. They want somebody just to give me something, make it better. Give me some medication to resolve my symptoms, and so I can get back to my life. When in reality, the feelings, the grief, the emotional pain, they need to be worked through. And so I would just love to see a world that, instead of recognizing these physical things, going straight to the doctor, give me something to make it better. I don't want to feel this anxiety. I don't want to feel this pain. Give me something to knock me out, or whatever it is, to seek professional help. Psychologist, which can also prescribe medicine, but get in there and talk about these things. Professional counselors. And I think that that would solve a lot of issues, right? And as a society, we're not taught, and we don't take time to just pause and to feel and to move through emotions. We're so quick, fast paced. You need to get through it. You need to shove it, whatever you're feeling, back down so you can get back to work and you can get back on your busy schedule. Anyway, so the next way grief can manifest itself is affective or emotionally. And that looks like fear, anxiety, sadness, anger, powerlessness, hopelessness. I've experienced that. It is not fun. Shame. So any of those feelings that can come up, that can also be experienced. Another way that grief can manifest itself is cognitively. I've had this happen too. Obsessive thoughts, inability to concentrate, apathy, nightmares, confusion or disorientation, attempts to rationalize or understand the pain. I will say, like, even just the cognitive, like all of these things, any of these things could be going on, but this cognitive stuff, this is what makes it impossible to carry out the most mundane tasks of life, of everyday life. Like, I have absolutely experienced there are days when all I can do is get up and go to the bathroom, and it takes all of my
right thing.
Right. And it takes all of my energy to do that, or to take a shower, or to feed myself, that's like the first thing that goes for me is I stop eating, not intentionally. I just have no appetite. So all that to say that this cognitive stuff, it destroys all patterns of normalcy in life, especially with all the physical stuff and the emotional stuff that comes up. Next, grief can impact, your spirituality. Sometimes people will go into searching for meaning of the loss or the pain, searching for purpose. Often when in grief, it changes your spiritual beliefs. They change, and the feelings about your spiritual belief, they change. I know that for me, that I have questioned my understanding of God, and that has changed several times. Lastly, there's a lot of behavioral ways that grief can manifest itself, and that looks like lots of tears, lots of crying, increased illnesses can happen, avoiding or seeking reminders of loss or betrayal. This is called pain shopping in recovery language. If I'm like doing stuff if I'm looking for things that I know are going to be triggering for me. Obsessive activity, people get busy. And that's just like what you said earlier. Getting and staying busy with any and all things that you can do to distract yourself to not feel. So social withdrawal is absolutely a thing. Accidents can sometimes happen. Like people aren't able to, like when driving, like because they're foggy and not clear, accidents can happen. And even in everyday stuff. And then lastly, use of substances to cope. Like you said earlier, people can use anything to cope. And that's what we would call in professional terms, maladaptive coping mechanisms. And that can look like a heck of a lot of things.
And the most used
anything.
Version of that is food.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's easy.
And because it also doesn't feel like it's a problem because
Right.
it's just a normal
Food or
society
sex.
thing.
I think that
yeah.
people don't, I said sex. People don't want to talk about that. And I think that it can mask itself as like, oh, well, I'm married and I'm just being sexual with my partner. And that's, yeah. We could
there's
spend
a
a
long
whole
list of stuff that we could talk about.
We could spend a whole podcast on that. Anyways, I would love to end with a couple quotes.
Go for it.
Grief never ends, but it changes. It is a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, nor a lack of faith. It is the price of love. And that was anonymous. And so to that, I want to say, I might cry. For anyone experiencing grief, know that you are not alone, even though it probably feels like it. I've been there, and there are several days that I'm right back in the grief cycle again. I know that no words can ever fix your grief, and they really can't. I think people try to step in and fix it and do all that they can to try to, help you. And that does, it's helpful, but it's not going to fix it, unfortunately, as badly as we want it to. Just remember that the grief changes. It won't go away, but it just changes. Life won't ever be the same. That is something even in itself that I had to grieve, that life is not going to be the way that it was, and it's not going to be the same. And whether you can believe it or not, There will be a new normal. I have had to grieve this. I've had to make space for this truth, and grieve the reality of the truth that there can be a new normal and what that looks like. Lastly, you are stronger than you think you are, and you are resilient. And I want to end that with another quote that is amazing. It kind of talks about trauma and grief. So here's the quote. Trauma permanently changes us. There is no such thing as getting over it. The 5 stages of grief mark the universal stages in learning to accept loss. However, the reality of the change is in fact much bigger. A major life disruption leaves a new normal in its wake. There is no back to the old me or back to my old life. You are different now, full stop. This is not a wholly negative thing, though. Healing from trauma can also mean finding new strength and joy. The goal of healing is not a papering over of changes in an effort to preserve or present things as normal. It is to acknowledge and wear your new life, warts, wisdom, and all, with courage. And that is Catherine Woodwis.
Nice. Yeah. I want to throw in one more thing before we close out on the grief, and then we'll get into the recovery aspect. Yeah. Something that I had a thought of as you were talking about that and the quotes you gave. In this day and age where we're at right now, when it comes to the quarantine, when it comes to the coronavirus and all the effects it's had on our culture and our lives right now, and most of us are very upset about that. They're either very sad, very angry,
right.
And are angry that life will change. Even when this is done, life will be different. It's going to be different.
I think it'll be different for a little bit.
It'll be different. There'll be a lot of things. You look at any big event in the world, and life has been different after that for different reasons. Mm-hmm. So it is very important and vital that you allow yourself to grieve the loss of what was.
Yeah.
And you accept what's to come.
Yeah, that's great.
Because again, the way a lot of people are responding around this thing just shows how hard it is for people to be able to accept and to be able to grieve.
Yeah.
So it's very important right now where we're at that we grieve what was, we grieve what we've lost, and we accept and move forward as we go. So. All right, great. We're going to take a break, and we're going to get into the recovery part of the song. Be right back. BRB. Recovery is my superpower. It's something I heard from Brene Brown, which I feel like we're going to end up quoting Brene Brown about at least once every podcast.
Yeah.
But she said once in a podcast, listening to her, recovery is my superpower. And I just cannot relate more to that phrase. Because without recovery, recovery is about so much more. The 12-step program is about so much more than just stopping whatever the addiction is. In fact, that's the whole point of it is, and why it works if you work it. It works if you work it. Is because a lot of us will go into stuff like that or try to get rid of an addiction of some sort by sheer willpower. And it never works.
It ain't gonna work.
It doesn't work. It may work for a little while, but it will implode at some point.
We call that white knuckling in recovery
white knuckling
language.
Yeah. And so the point of the 12-step program in recovery is it gets to the deep stuff. It gets below the surface. It gets to it gets down deep in what is really going on, because it is so much deeper than you can even imagine before you go into the program and the 12-step process. So the quotes from Brene on recovery is my superpower. Part of that is because today I can take an inventory. Today I can feel things. I can identify feelings and identify how that is affecting me in my recovery. Today I seek awareness constantly. Same along the same realm as an inventory. I'm constantly trying to be aware at what is going on in me. And I learn on a weekly basis new things that I suddenly become aware of that I was not previously aware of. Recovery, it's everything. I don't know how to explain it. It goes so much deeper than the actual act of your addiction. And it can make you a better father, a better husband, a better friend. And also, it also allows you to feel that wholeness that it takes a program like the 12-step program to really feel. And yeah.
Can I add to it?
I just love that quote. Please add to it.
I think recovery gives me the tools to know how to handle the situations.
Yes, exactly.
And I think like that, I would add to that and say that it has provided me the tools it doesn't change the situation. It gives me the correct coping tools, coping mechanisms. It gives me the opportunity to practice skills that I need in order to stay out, or try to stay out, correct my character defects or the addiction or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So
one day I would love to have an episode where we get into the actual steps and what they mean and
that's great.
The process of it, because a lot of people are unaware about the 12-step process. I know nowadays there are people who are, making 12-step program a little more mainstream in the sense where it's not just something that if you are an addict to, X, Y, and Z, like the big stuff that you should be doing.
Right.
Because again, I believe everybody is an addict. And there's so many versions of it. But a 12-step program is something that a lot more people are becoming more aware of and doing, even if they're not one of the, the big addictions or whatnot.
Right.
So that would be cool to do in the future.
Yeah.
But how does, lyrically speaking, talk to me about how this song relates to this topic about recovery.
Okay. So I'll share. So next right thing, like what that means to me. It's really about, and I'll get more into this in the lyrics, but it's really about doing the next right thing. And something that was right for me, like in the very beginning, was figuring out what boundaries are and understanding that setting boundaries is going to be very uncomfortable for myself and for those around me. So with that said, oftentimes doing the next right thing is not comfortable. The next right thing, whatever that is for you, that may be filled with sadness and anger and hurt. But that doesn't mean that it's not the right thing. So yeah, my example of that is boundaries and how very utterly difficult that was for me to learn. And I'm still learning what boundaries are, how to set boundaries, when to be flexible on boundaries, when to not be flexible on boundaries. And this is with every person, including myself, actually. So also to that question, recovery, next right thing in recovery, to me, it is my form of resilience. It has given me a plethora of tools to know how to be resilient in every area of my life. And the lyrics that pinpoint recovery and doing the next right thing, are as follows. Take a step again. It is all that I can to do. I won't look too far ahead. It's so much for me to take. So we call this future tripping in recovery. And I cannot tell you how many dang times I'm like future tripping about something, and my sponsor or whoever it is in the program reminds me, like, stay in today. Keep it simple. Stay in today. And I love that. Like, even in the movie, like, I remember crying at this part. She's like, take a step and step again. Like, oh, it is all that I can to do. Like, I can remember all the days and still days that it's all I can to do to just take a step forward and make a decision on something. Next lyrics are that I love. Break it down to this next breath, this next step, this next choice. It's all that I can make, or it's one that I can make. I like that. That is what it is. Like, that is exactly what it describes. Like, that is, we have this slogan that is take it one day at a time. And for me, like, those lyrics, it's take it one like 30-minute like section at a time. This next hour, take it hour by hour. Like, sometimes that is all that I can do, is to take the 30 minutes if I'm like freaking out and in my anxiety and I'm right up against my hopelessness. I mean, it's a very rough place to be in. But yeah, that it's taking it the 30 minutes, the hour, the day, and not looking back and not looking forward. So I'll walk through this night, these next lyrics. So I'll walk through this night, stumbling blindly through the light. That is the epitome of recovery. It is. Yeah. It's trusting the process. The amount of times I have heard, trust the process. Just trust the process. And I don't want to freaking trust the process because of my control.
Hold on. Bracelet from Onsite.
Like,
it says trust the process. I've had it on every day of my life since leaving Onsite. It's a great reminder. Trust the process. Right there on my wrist.
Trust the process. And really, like, stumbling blindly through the light, that is recovery. In my 12-step work, I am stumbling blindly toward this thing that people have told me it's like a light over there. And I'm just trusting the process. Next lyrics. With it done, what comes then, when it's clear that everything will never be the same again? And that goes back to the grief. It's trusting the process and making the changes that people are telling me are healthy, they're different, without knowing what's coming, where it will end. It's letting go of the outcome, and embracing the unknown, and accepting that there is a new life ahead. There is a new you, there is a new me ahead, and I'm just going to keep going. There's a quote that I love. It says, let me start over. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. That's anonymous. I love that quote, right? Like, that is exactly what recovery is. You don't know what the heck it's going to look like at the end. But if I can take the next step, the first step, if I can do something a little bit differently and keep going, then eventually, maybe, I'll be lucky enough to get to the end of the staircase and be able to see the whole journey, which I don't know if that's possible in this life, but so many slogans that I use there. It works if you work it one day at a time. Sometimes this is an hour at a time, like I said. Keep it simple. Just do the next right thing, one thing at a time.
Yeah, that's all really good stuff. Yeah, I would just add, I brought this up a little bit early on, that the amount of times I hear men in the program say, just do the next right thing. And I can't tell you how many times I have said that to myself, throughout the past few years of recovery. There are, of course, addicts who are of addicts. I mean, it just like really like they survive off of their addiction. Like they need their addiction to survive, which I have learned comes from things that were not given to you through childhood. Things that weren't given to you through childhood, whether it's parents missing this part in your development, or it's a trauma of some sort that happened in your childhood. What happens is you miss very important parts of your childhood and your development, and you are left as a child to figure out how to survive when you don't have a very important life thing, life lesson thing instilled in you. And so what happens is addicts become addicts because they use substances, they use things, not just substances, what all the other things, they use it to fill those holes because they literally need it to survive. When I heard that for the first time, in fact, I was told, this is an on-site, I at one point was told to thank my addiction, to thank it for keeping me alive. And I was just like, wait, excuse me? You want me to, I need to be thankful for this? Without it, I literally wouldn't be alive today. Without having something to fill that hole, I wouldn't be alive. However, now I have the tools to be able to do life without it. I have the tools to be able to heal that part that is missing from trauma, from just childhood experiences, from different, things in that nature. I now have the tools to fill that with healthy things, and the things that I was missing to make me have to go to these addictions. I now have the tools to do it, and it's going to take in recovery. It takes a lot of time. We are talking about, if you literally pull up brain scans of an addict's brain, it looks completely different than the average person's brain. And that's because our brains literally tick very differently, because they have developed and require certain things to survive. It becomes attached to our DNA. Our addiction becomes a part of our DNA. It becomes how we do life. And we cannot survive without it because we've had it our entire lives. So all that to say, it being a part of our lives, to have to heal something that has become us and become a part of us and become literally as natural to us as breathing, it takes a lot of time, and it can be brutally difficult. I mean, the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life is gain a period of sobriety. The hardest thing I've ever had to do, because it's just, it is us. It's how we operate. So to be able to look at it in a 24-hour period, and like you said, sometimes I just need to make it through the next hour. The amount of times that I have in my recovery process legitimately felt like, if I do not act on this addiction, if I do not act on this, I am not going to make it to tomorrow. That's a feeling that only if you are a recovering addict do you understand. Looking at every day as, I just have to make it through today. I just have to make it through today. Just have to make it through the day. That is all you can do. And some days that is all you can do to get through the day. But you can't look ahead. I can't look at a month from now. I can't look at a week from now. Because it feels impossible. It feels, I'm not going to be able to go the next year. I'm never going to make it to a year of sobriety. Are you kidding me? Like a year without that? There's no way. You can't look at that. You have to look at what's right in front of you and take that next step, no matter how hard it can get. But that's why we have community. That's why we have support. That's why we have people, and without them, without the program, without the work I've done to dig under the surface and figure out what's really going on and why I need that, and start to work on healing those things. Now I'm at a place where I feel like I actually can do this. I feel like I actually can do this for the rest of my life. I may not feel like that tomorrow, but most days nowadays I'm like, I actually can do this. So, but that's because of taking it one day at a time.
I would love to end with the Serenity Prayer. A lot of people probably don't know it.
please.
But I think it's perfect for recovery and grief and all the things that we're talking about today. The serenity prayer is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
We say that a lot.
It's powerful.
What is the quote we have on our fridge of it?
Oh, shoot. Grant me the coffee to change the things I can and the whiskey to accept the things I can't.
It's so good.
It's cute.
We saw that. We had to put it on our fridge.
We died
It's so
when we
funny.
saw it.
Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you
Love
for
y'all.
listening,
Thank you
if
for
you're still
listening
here.
in. If you're still around,
Yeah.
you got through all the stuff, the nitty gritty. We appreciate you. We love you.
We love you. You're not
Thank you
alone.
for the support.
It takes courage. You're brave.
Please go check out our new album, The Story of Us. It's out. Would love if y'all listen to that. And then you can know some of the songs that we got coming up to talk about. So, anyways.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.